I'm going to be talking to you about the hidden secrets to overcoming obesity and diabetes. And what I want us to really take on board is that we've already heard that it's multifaceted. Over the last 3 days, if you've been tuning in, we've heard lots of people talk about all kinds of different avenues of this epidemic that we are in. And here's what we've got to take on board. It's different in all countries, but we all seem to be struggling in one way or another. There's 10,000 approved chemicals allowed in food in the US versus 400 in Europe. And just that staggering statistic alone means that there's no surprise that we are fatter, sicker, more infertile, and more depressed than we've ever been before in history. These are the stats that are this year. 70% in the US of adults are overweight or obese. And we're not far behind in the UK. Now, I know that's not worldwide figures, but these are some frightening stats, and they are increasing year on year, as are the stats for diabetes. We know that for many people, they're not even warned that they are pre-diabetic. Practitioners wait until they are bad enough, and then they can offer them some kind of medication. Sometimes that is backed up with advice, and sometimes it is not. It's not that long ago that the Association of Diabetes Help used to tell people that as long as they were taking their medication, they could eat whatever they liked. And people believed them, and they did. The problem is there is a lot of misinformation out there. And I love the internet, don't get me wrong. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the fact that we can all jump online and get to listen to amazing speakers from all over the world. But it has its downsides too, because it means that we've all got access to tons and tons of information. And often that is very contradictory. What a lot of us don't know is that a lot of the information that we are access to has been somehow censored, or it's been funded by food companies and by pharmaceutical companies who want to send us a specific message. For those of you who have been around long enough, you all know that stats can be manipulated to bring you an outcome of whatever it is that you decide they want to tell you. So I'm going to cover three main things today: the power of knowledge, connection, and action in overcoming obesity and diabetes. Because there's a lot of talk about what we can do, but it's the practical stuff that I'm really, really interested in. How can we actually help people to make the changes that they want to make, that they can make, and that they know they need to make? So the unseen path really is these three components. It's knowledge and connection, and those two are together for a reason. Because once we have the knowledge on its own, it's not that much use, is it? Knowledge without implementation is pretty useless, but we've got to be able to connect that knowledge to the people that we're helping, to the things that are available to us now, which are profound in terms of drugs that are available, therapies that are available, and we have to connect the right things to the right people at the right time, which ties into the psychology of change, because this is something that we don't spend a lot of time looking at. Everybody views change differently. The majority of people seem to think that change is hard and it's a struggle, and you can see it everywhere on the internet, on memes, people making comments that change is hard. We hear very renowned, well-known speakers saying it out loud in their conventions. And I want to challenge that, because the more we tell ourselves that change is hard, guess what? The more it's going to be hard. But change is about effort, and change is about doing the right things at the right time to help you to get to know yourself. And that means through choice. And that's the third thing. We can empower ourselves through choice, but we have to understand that making the right choice for you at the stage you're at is key, which is why we circle back to knowledge and connection. And these three components cannot be separated. So let's dive into who am I just for 1 second. So I am not a doctor, as I said. I am a holistic human health and hidden addiction specialist. I've been in the world of wellness since 1991, and I got into it because of my own issues with food, with problems around alcohol, body image disorder. I was bulimic, verging on anorexic for a while. I was definitely an exercise addict. And I really did have problems with understanding how my body functioned. Even back when I was very tiny, I could not resist sugar. And I remember stealing sweets as young as 3 years old. We lived next to a shop and I could just go help myself. And even at that age, there was something that I thought was different about me and how I behaved around certain foods compared to other members of my family. Little did I know then what I know now. But over the years, after overcoming my issues with alcohol, which thanks to me having a brush with death, I ended up in rehab and was able to take a break. It allowed me to look at what was really going on. And I recognized that what had been available to me from a help point of view back in the days when I was in my teens struggling with bulimia, the help that was offered then, which was really poor. And unfortunately, I'm sad to say, it's not really improved much in all those years. And I'm 55 now. So when I was 14, that's a long time ago. What was on offer wasn't great. And what was being fed in terms of understanding and information about addiction, about how the body worked, and crucially about the gut and the brain was very hard for me to find out. But I knew that that was the direction I went into. Hence, I delved into functional medicine, integrative health, and all of that good stuff, including NLP. I'm not going to read all that. You can read. These are all the things that I've studied over the years to help me to help people, because I couldn't find that help out there for myself. And one of the reasons why, is because we didn't have access to the knowledge that we have now. Finding research papers was a bit of a challenge back in the early 1990s and even the late 1990s, to be honest. Once things got a little bit more computerized, it's easier now, but it was a case of sitting in the library trying to find out books and work out how to connect things. And this is what I'm talking about. We have to help ourselves as practitioners and people who are here because we want people to take, I hope, to take responsibility and feel empowered to look after themselves. We need to help them to get the right knowledge, but in a way that's not overwhelming, and help them to connect it to what's relevant to them and to their lives. And that means knowing about the fact that all of these diseases, every single one of them that are right up there on the list of top diseases in the majority of Western worlds, they are all caused by one thing. And that thing is poor metabolic health. We've got to focus on cellular function and our metabolic health, folks, because that is looking at where is all of this stuff coming from. And one of those things affects how our cells function and affect our metabolic health. It's not rocket science. We've just had Dr. Ashok talking to us about Ayurveda practices that have been around for absolutely centuries. And they're based upon looking after your metabolic health and your cellular function. So this stuff is not rocket science. But we are now living in a different world to when these practices were something that everybody did just as part of their lifestyle, which is why we've got to do it slightly differently. What they didn't have back then was the food industry. And I am not here to absolutely smash the food industry for blaming it for our obesity issues and our diabetes problems and all of the other metabolic issues. However, it's a massive role for sure. And we cannot escape the fact that the food industry is making us sick. And it's making a lot of industries profit. Because when we are sick, pharmaceutical industries profit, the fitness industry profits, and the diet and the slimming industry profits. And what we've got to recognize, folks, is these are businesses. They are out to make money. And there are still a lot of people who are living in a bubble of delusion who think that they are out to help them, to make them better. They are not. Over and above everything else, they are businesses. Don't get me wrong, I am part of the fitness industry. I've been a fitness instructor since 1991. That was the first training that I actually did because I wanted to help people to feel good and to look good in a body that they actually liked, because at the time I hated mine. So people go into these industries for the best of reasons, but unfortunately they are businesses. And for a lot of us, that's quite disillusioning and quite disheartening, because we didn't get into it to make money. We got into it to help people. We've also got to recognize is that these businesses have got a massive budget and they are excellent at marketing. We don't have products, pharmaceutical products in the UK being advertised to us every 10 or 30 seconds or whatever it seems to be when US TV is on. But we do have a lot of food, a lot of drink, a lot of alcohol, and all of that stuff thrown at us all of the time. And the more we hear these adverts and the more we listen to the jingles, and I'm sure all of you in this room can think of jingles that are stuck in your memory since you were a kid that go with certain food products, certain cereals, certain chocolate bars, certain drinks. We all can, because we have been brainwashed. And this is what we've got to recognize. It's an industry, it's a business, and they are excellent at marketing. Interestingly enough, just as an aside, there has been a study that has been published just in the last couple of weeks called the Darcy Report. That's DARZI report, if anybody wants to check it out, on the NHS in the UK, which is in a heck of a mess. It was in a mess before the pandemic, and it's even bigger of a mess now. And what this report was designed to do was to look at why are we getting it so wrong, and why is our country in such a mess in terms of its physical and mental health. There are more people off long-term sick than ever before in the whole history of us keeping records of this stuff, which is frightening. And our NHS system in the UK is just not able to cope. And one of the things on the back of this report that they are proposing is that there is an actual ban now on food, high processed food that is targeted at children before 9 o'clock. So they're not allowed to put these adverts out in the middle of kids' TV. Now, I think that's a fantastic idea, because kids are, as far as the food company is concerned, the manufacturers of these processed foods, they are your customers. They are going to be repeat customers. And if you can get them early, yeah, you've probably got them for life. So that's a good thing. But how long will it actually take to happen? Who knows? It's not going to stop us, though, from seeing billboards everywhere. It's not going to stop us from seeing these things in the supermarkets that are cheaper than real whole foods. So we've got a big, big job on our hands to change how people feel and think about things. And what we need to remember is this excellent psychology and marketing of food is down to the fact that it used to be that the food companies marketed themselves until big tobacco stepped in. And when tobacco stepped in, this is kind of where we can follow the history of how we have escalated in the massive increase in all of the illnesses that I talked about, not just diabetes, not just obesity, but heart disease, dementia, all kinds of other things. So the big boys in tobacco recognized that actually people were getting wise to the fact that maybe smoking wasn't as good for you as they'd made it out to be. And so they got the opportunity to jump in on some of the big food companies, and the scientists that helped them to make sure that cigarettes became addictive, they got beavering away in their labs to make food addictive too. And so for those of you who have struggled, as I did, to wonder what the heck is wrong with me and why willpower just does not work with certain foods, it's because they have been made to be addictive. Once you open that packet and you start, you are going to reach out for the next one, and you are going to keep on going until it's all gone. And that's because they've been designed to hit your bliss spot. And there is billions put into making sure that these products that go on the shelves do exactly that. The crunch, the noise when you bite into it, the mouthfeel, how quickly the tastes change on your tongue, how much it takes you to chew it and swallow it. All of those things have been worked out to the nth degree to hit that bliss spot and make sure you are hooked. On the back of that, in the 1990s, we got the Sugar Research Council that's funding Harvard. Now, Harvard is kind of like gold standard when it comes to nutrition and doing reports and research and all that kind of stuff. And the majority of people don't know that a lot of the food companies are behind these food and health reports that are coming out. So there is a bias around the science even that's available to us, which is why as practitioners, we've got to be hot on it. We've got to be really aware of who is funding what is the research saying, and what is the message that they're trying to portray. Is it actually true? And then in 1992, which really changed things dramatically across the whole of the health industry, doctors, nurses, health practitioners, everybody was told that the food pyramid was the holy grail for health and nutrition. And that's pretty much where it all went pear-shaped, folks, because we were suddenly now carb addicts big time. And we changed how we were working. We're not as manually active as we used to be by any stretch, right? We're all sitting now. We're probably all going to be sitting on our butts all day watching this conference, which means that we're just not getting in the movement that we used to when we were all manually very, very active. So the food pyramid was out of date before it was even published, to be fair. And that's where we now look at what are the stats today, and they're frightening. The stats have doubled since the 90s for obesity, for diabetes, and that is continuing year on year. So I want to share with you somebody who is kind of a person who fell into that whole food pyramid and eating healthy side of things. This is a guy called Mike. He has his own business. I work only with business owners and CEOs. And he came to me because he was struggling with food. He thought that his process of living and being was getting a bit much because food ruled everything. When he ate, how much he ate, and exercise. And he fell for the whole, you need loads of carbohydrates. He was doing a lot of sport because he enjoyed it, but also in his head, he was on the calories in, calories out. He'd done the old Weight Watchers thing, and he would practice doing crazy things like not drinking water on the day that he was getting weighed so that the scale would say less. When we started working together, he literally was sick and tired of the struggle to battle his belly, his tiredness, his fatigue. He was overweight. He didn't know it until I did a couple of tests and questions with him that he was pre-diabetic. And he was using food. He was using it to soothe his emotions, his feelings, and he was addicted to exercise. What we did then was look at what was going on underneath. And this is the hidden path that I'm talking about, because there's hidden addictions for most people. And this is not just for people who are turning to food, but it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's other things too. He was unwittingly, unknowingly addicted to worry and anxiety. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, right? How can people be addicted to emotions and feelings? But you can. And this is a bit that we need to understand. Every thought that we have, every emotion that we feel, there is a responding release in our body of chemicals. And what we know, if you've listened to other people who are explaining to you how the brain works, the brain is trying to help you, right? It has one thing on its mind, if you like, and that is to stop you from dying. So when we consistently get a release of chemicals flooding our system repeatedly, multiple times a day, then the brain gets to work and it goes, okay, these chemicals must be important to our survival because we keep on having to make them. So it therefore thinks that you need to keep on being anxious and you need to keep on worrying so that you can survive. So guess what? Even when there isn't something for you to be anxious about, you will find something to be anxious about. Now, you can't know that this is going on unless we talk about just what are you thinking? What are you saying to yourself in your head? It turns out that Mike was a perfectionist, and because of his perfectionism, he was procrastinating. His ability to make decisions was horrific. He was so slow to the extent that his colleagues would kind of make a bit of a joke about it, but it wasn't a joke. It was affecting how he was feeling And therefore, when he didn't feel good enough, when he didn't feel that he was stepping up to his expectations or theirs, what did he do? Turn to food. And then because the guilt and the shame kicked in, he then tried to over-exercise. And so he got stuck in this struggle. Now, it's only by having conversations with people and helping them to recognize what is going on can we start to unpick this. So it wasn't about me giving him a diet, and it wasn't about me saying you have to do this and stop doing that. It was about helping him to understand how did he tick. In other words, helping him to get to know himself. Because let's face it, most of our clients don't. They don't know who they are. And what we did then was help him to bust the myths that he believed about food, about exercise, about how he should be as a dad, as a business owner, as a husband, as a partner. Lots of shoulds and musts and have tos had to be smashed. We had to help him to build trust in his own decisions and recognize that actually fast decision making wasn't going to be a disaster, so that he could let go of procrastination and therefore let go of this limiting belief that he had to be perfect. And then I had to teach him how to learn to tune into his body. And this is what I do. We talk about yoga being really helpful in fat loss and in helping our lipid profile. Well, it helps our neurotransmitters. It helps us to connect to our body. We get mindful. We start to understand how it works, what we're feeling, where we're feeling it, and crucially, what it's telling us. And when we did that with Mike, when we just brought in the 3 C's, sleep, stress reduction, and balancing his sugar, when we taught him how to do that for himself, not by just giving him a plan to follow, but working out what works for him, because it's his body and it's his lifestyle, that's when he no longer needed to exercise, to punish himself, or to earn food. He now exercises for health. He now eats for energy, for connection, to go out with his family and have a good time, not because he's feeling fed up or because he deserves it. And brilliantly, he is no longer diabetic. So this is the stuff that we need to start being able to do with our clients, our patients, whatever it is that you are, who you're working with. We need to help them to understand that psychology of change is about knowing themselves. First of all, it's about helping them to take the right steps in the right order for them. There is no one size fits all. There is no one set program that should be done in a certain way, because we're all different. We all work differently. Our brains are different. Many people, we are now recognizing more and more, have very neurodiverse brains. Is there even such a thing as a neurotypical brain? I'm not sure these days. But what I do know is that we have to create the art of health and wellness for everybody, because it's accessible. And again, I'm going back to what Dr. Ascot shared. It's free. None of this stuff costs money. You have to start being aware of what you do, why you do it, who are you with, when are you doing it, what are the stories you're telling yourself, what are the beliefs, and then why do you want to change them? Because if you don't want to change, but somebody's forcing you to change, good luck with that. That's not going to work. You've then got to take responsibility for the fact is you are where you are, right? It might not be your fault. It may be that there's a lot of circumstances and a lot of trauma around why you are where you are. But unless you start taking responsibility now to do something different, can't move forward. And then you take the right action, but it doesn't have to be hard. We allow ourselves to fail. We fail fast so that we can learn what works and what doesn't. We have awareness of what we're going to do, why we're going to try it, then reflect back on it, and that's how we transform. This is available to everybody. Steph did it for very different reasons. She came to me because she had massive gut issues, to the extent that she was rolling around, oftentimes on the floor, for 2 or 3 hours because she was in so much pain. She had such a restrictive diet that it was getting to the point where it was ridiculous. She was nearly on the verge of anorexia because she didn't know what she could eat that wasn't going to cause her pain and discomfort. It also transpired that she'd got ADHD. There was a lot of trauma that we needed to sort through. And as a kid, she'd been on multiple courses of antibiotics. Now, she had no clue that all of this lot was connected. And again, we're back to the knowledge. and the connection, because this is the crucial bit. We need to help our clients and we need ourselves to understand the connection between trauma, between gut health issues, between ADHD or autism or any other mental issue that is going to affect how we feel, think, behave, connect, associate with things. And of course, antibiotics and what they do or don't do these days in our bodies. So for Steph, her journey was different to Mike's, but kind of similar. We had to help her to understand her gut brain. We had to help her to connect and understand that for her, there were going to be certain foods that probably her body just was not able to break down, assimilate, and deal with. And that was a process that we went through slowly. We helped her to get over some of the trauma, and that was different methods that we used, and we worked on the stuff that she felt comfortable with and what she didn't. She started to understand ADHD, her version of ADHD, how it came out for her, what it enabled to do, what she didn't do with it. And this is where she's now delighted that she has ADHD, because it means that it's allowing her to work with it instead of working against it. She's now got no more gut issues and hasn't had for the last 7 months. She's got clear skin. She's got tons more energy to keep up with a little 7-year-old, who you can see in the picture there. And something that she wanted but didn't think she'd ever be able to do was to finally start losing body fat. And this again goes back to choice, empowerment, and connection. Because we tried things, they weren't helpful. We ditched them. We tried other things. But you've got to communicate and you've got to talk about what is going on. And that means building a relationship with your clients. And I know that that is a challenge, and that is the bit that we're missing when it comes to people having literally 5 or 7 or 10 minutes, whatever it is these days, to see somebody. But until we start to bring back in the human connection to helping people take responsibility for their health, we're never going to make any significant inroads into these stats. There is so much crap and bullshit out there, folks. Corrupt regulations aimed at profits, especially in the US, biased science that people are reading and believing, all kinds of total BS that's out there on the internet with influencers who know half a tale. And you know the saying, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. Well, in the case of health and wellness, I believe a little bit of knowledge is often totally incorrect, and that can be dangerous for a lot of people. So going to people who know their stuff, going to somebody who you gel with, who you feel connected to, who you think really does get you, is so, so important. The food industry is out to make a profit. It didn't set out to make us sick. I'm not here to bash the food industry, right? It set out to provide cheaper food to a growing population. That's how it began. But now it's kind of turned into this whole big monster of its own making. And on the back of that, we've got businesses and industries that are profiting hand over fist. And for a lot of these, the government knows it's not in their best interests to promote healthcare. It's not in their best interest to get people to help themselves and to not keep wanting to keep turning to medications, because they'll lose money. And so you can see why there's a lot of contradictory information. There's a lot of conflict going on. But ultimately, as humans, we are here to champion, I believe, other humans. And to do that, we've got to stop this sickness management. We've got statins now, hooray, but more people are dying of heart disease. We've got metformin, but more people with diabetes than ever before. We've got SSRIs, and yet the amount of people with mental health issues and particularly depression is skyrocketing. And now GLPs are probably going to follow that same trajectory. Why? Because we're not connecting properly to people. We're not giving them the right information for them, and we're not focusing on the root cause. Cellular function and metabolic health. We need to help people to look at food and where it comes from. What does it actually look like, really? Right? Because there's so many kids now don't even know what the foods they're putting into their mouth are actually made of, because they're not technically real food. So getting back to nature and helping people to have availability to these kinds of foods is what we need to do. not demonizing any of them, but helping people to recognize that they can create healthy habits for themselves with the right knowledge, with the right information, not information overload, but just at the right level for the person in front of you, for the phase that they're at. And we can help them do simple things like just be aware of their posture. Are you breathing through your nose when you're stressed out? Right? Do you know? If you're a mouth breather at night, well, you probably know if you wake up with a dry mouth and your partner says you snore. So these are things that we can do. Are you getting out in the morning in sunlight as early as is possible? Are you creating movements that work your muscles and overload them? Because we know that the more muscle we have, the more likely we're to live longer. Your mindset, your beliefs, do you even know what they are? Have you questioned them? Are they even yours? These are the things that we need to start looking at. These are the secrets to helping people to take agency and to recognize that their health is their responsibility, but in a positive way. And no, it doesn't have to be hard. And you don't have to do it all at once. We've got to encourage people to have the courage to ask for help. That's step one. We've then got to help them to be curious, tell them what to do, ask them to ask questions of themselves. What do I need? What do I feel? What do I think might help me? What am I feeling? Right? These are the questions we need to start asking. And then we need to listen. Gretchen talked about how practitioners can be more compassionate and to listen to what your clients in front of you are saying to you. We are compassionate with what they're saying. It doesn't mean that we're agreeing with them, but we're hearing them. Because here's the thing, people need to be heard, they need to be seen, and they need to be appreciated. And I can tell you what, the majority of people, when they go to practitioners or to their doctors, don't feel any of those. And we need to speak clearly. They don't want gobbledygook language. They don't want to know how clever you are because you're using words that they don't understand. Give them clear statements. Ask them, is this making sense? Do you have questions? And then we need to be committed. We need to be committed to helping them through their journey because they're going to come up against obstacles. And no, it's not because they're lazy. And no, it's not because they're not trying hard enough. We've got to help them to be committed and we've got to be committed to them. And over and above, there's got to be consistency. Because if we don't do this stuff and make these habits sustainable and simple, then we're never going to turn those figures around because that's what we definitely do need to do. We've got to encourage people to live more, laugh more, connect more, get outside, be with people. We have never been more disconnected than we are right now. Fun statistic for you folks. Did you know that the majority of people, the average time that they pick up the phone is 356 times in a day? That's 22 times an hour. We are picking up our phone and we're not connecting with other humans. We think we are, but we're not. And what that's doing to our brain chemistry, to our neurotransmitters, to what is happening in our systems, we're just touching the surface of the damage that that is doing. So let's connect more. Let's create communities. Let's do this stuff together. Make changes with a friend, with a buddy, with a community. Start making health fun. I am Vicky Midwood. That was me giving you the secrets to helping you and your clients feel and look better. And I've got a little free gift for you folks. If you want to click on that QR code, it will take you to my Linktree where I have got a PDF that will help you for yourself to discover the unseen path and make lasting changes to your health. And then maybe you'd like to pass them on to your clients too. Thank you for listening.